For more on this, we're now joined by Labour lawyer Michael Bagraim, and he's here to discuss, what companies should do or how they should interact with employees, especially when facing a liquidation. Michael, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I mean, just looking at those testimonies from those truck drivers, I mean, it is really quite saddening when things reach this point and employees are just left in the dark.
It's not sad, it's actually horrific what's happened over here, and I'm blaming everyone. Obviously, the employer seems to be completely duplicitous and seems that they are breaking every single labour law that we have in this country. But then what's happened to the Department of Employment and Labour? They know that the UIF hasn't been paid over, or the provident monies. What's happened to the trade union? This has been going on for over half a year. This story is not a new one, and it's become absolutely ridiculous. And the trade union seems to be now suddenly going off to the CCMA. They could have gone to the police, they could have gone to the department, they could have issued a summons, they could do all sorts of things. This is a recognized, registered trade union who have lawyers, access to lawyers, and I think they failed the workers, quite frankly, because now we have people who are literally high and dry. They're camping outside the offices with no money. You heard their children can't go to school. I don't know where they're getting food from. And also it appears that there is major theft going on, because those monies that have been deducted from the workers, not only for the UIF, but what about PAYE? What about pension monies? What about the monies that they were deducting from the workers to pay to the union? All of that is theft. That's what it is. And personally, I'm pushing the union now quite strongly to go to the police, to lay charges of theft, fraud. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know why the union's been sitting on its hands throughout this exercise. And in fact, the employees themselves can take the law into their own hands by going to the police directly.
And I was about to come there, Michael. I mean, what are the appropriate steps here when a company is facing liquidation? What should employees do?
Well, it's no good saying facing liquidation. They're either in liquidation or they're not. They've either made a court application for liquidation and they're under provisional, or they're not. It doesn't sound like they are. It sounds like the management or the directors of this company are hiding behind a threat of liquidation. In other words, we're going to close this company down if you don't shut up. They must go and do it now. They must go to the police. I would suggest that they go and open criminal charges, get it properly investigated by the police, cost them nothing, get the union off their backsides to go and actually run to the court. They don't have to wait for the CCMA and go through conciliation, mediation, and then to go through to arbitration. No, they must issue a summons immediately out of the court. This is urgent. The Labour Court will accept it. And then, of course, they could also ask the CCMA, senior management of the CCMA, to actually get involved, because they have legislation where the CCMA itself can have people to step in and get involved. Never mind the fact that they're not getting their money, but they can actually step in and find out what's going on here. We have some perfectly good legislation in this country that allows a union to actually take action now. But if I was one of those employees, I can promise you now I'd be camping outside a police station, not outside the offices of the company itself, because they're just going to lock the doors and not let them in. It sounds desperate.
I mean, also just looking at labor laws in this country, and when you have employers misleading their workers, I mean, what are the consequences for these employers?
Well, it's quite dire. First of all, there are directors of this company and they have assets, and those directors could be personally liable, never mind hiding behind the corporate veil. We must actually attack the directors themselves and make them personally liable. They know that the monies have been going towards diesel instead of the pension fund or the provident fund. There might even be a bargaining council in the background, I'm not sure. But the reality is that you must start threatening the individuals and say to the individuals, the directors, the management, that you are personally liable for what's going on here. You can't just go and sink a company afterwards and say, I'll wash my hands off this. This is theft. And it meant people had to have something to do with that theft. Who was the financial director? Get that person in jail as quickly as possible. I don't like this. We're seeing a lot of this in South Africa over the last few years. We even saw a political party doing this. It's not acceptable. It seems like we've got laws, but no one wants to implement the laws. And the authorities, I don't know what they're doing. They seem to be almost scared to take action against the corporates.
Yeah.
And they must.
And when it comes to unions, surely, I mean, you are saying that they should have acted by now. Why does it seem as if they are dragging their feet when it comes to, you know, dealing with this head on?
It makes me very suspicious, I must admit, because this is not a two-bit union. This is a strong union, and they're under the COSATU umbrella. They must be wrapped over their knuckles very heavily. Yes, there's no good crying over spilt milk, but then they need to get off their backsides tomorrow morning and actually make sure they're at the police station, make sure that their lawyers to issue a summons out of the Supreme Court, the High Court, sorry, or at least go to the Labour Court. And you can get there in a hurry. You can get there as a matter of urgency. Also, the liquidation doesn't mean all that much until they've actually done it. We can take action now as talking on behalf of the employees. The other thing is the claim for outstanding salaries is a preference claim. So even if they go into liquidation, they, after the receiver revenue, they get first because it's outstanding salaries. And as for the theft that has taken place, because that's their money, it's not the company's money. Their money was used for, I don't know what, diesel, they said, and tires. It could have been used to go into directors' pockets as well. I'm very suspicious now that that, in fact, is what is happening right now. They're looting the company.
And Michael, one would also ask, I mean, you are saying that there's various steps and various channels that can deal with this crisis almost immediately. How quickly can this be resolved, especially when it comes to the payment of the salary of the workers, and to ensure that, you know, when it comes to their provident fund and their pensions, it gets paid directly to those who are deserving of that money? How quickly can this be dealt with?
Well, that's why I suggested the union get their lawyers to go down to the Labour Court tomorrow, issue the papers out of the Labour Court and get them to freeze the bank accounts and to stop people looting any of the assets. They're trucks in this company. They probably own many of these trucks. Those trucks can be frozen, that they don't get sold off and the money starts disappearing. You remember, they should have done that with the Guptas, but the Guptas sold off all their assets as much as they could and then secreted it off to Dubai. Make sure that this doesn't happen. They can do that tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning is a work day, and it shouldn't take 2 hours to get the papers out there and get an urgent interdict against that company and all the directors, urgently. If the company says they're in liquidation, they must bring the paperwork and prove it. I don't think that's happened. The union's been calling for financials on the company and they haven't come forward with it. So I don't believe any of that. I think it's just shock and horror.
All right. Michael, thank you so much for your time this evening. That's Labour lawyer Michael Bagraim giving us his insight there when it comes to those 30 employees working for that truck company in Ermelo in Mpumalanga.